In number 1, we have a linear equation, and we'll solve this linear equation by isolating x. X is being multiplied by -5, so we'll do the basic operation of dividing both sides by the same number to undo that multiplication. In other words, division is the opposite of multiplication. So since x is being multiplied by -5, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to divide both sides by -5. All right, and then we can cancel these -5s, and we're left with x equal 15 divided by -5, or x is equal to -3. In our second linear equation, we want to start by isolating the x term. So here's our x term, that is x together with the coefficient. Now the x term is not isolated because you have this -3 next to it, so we're going to do the opposite of subtracting 3. We're going to add 3 to both sides. That is, we're going to do this basic operation of adding the same number to both sides of the equation. And let's see, just bring down that 7x. We're adding -3 and +3, so those cancel. And 9 and 3 is 12. Okay, now the x term is isolated on the left side of the equation, but x is being multiplied by 7. We want to isolate x now, so we're going to do the opposite of multiplication. We're going to divide by 7. So the 7's cancel, and we're left with x is equal to the fraction 12 divided by 7. In number 8, we have two x terms on both sides of the equation. Here are two x terms. And we want to start by consolidating the x terms, or bringing them together, so that we have one x term. And we'll do that by subtracting 6x from both sides. Alright, so we're basically bringing the 6x over to the left side as -6x. On the left side, we start with 8x minus 6x, that's 2x. Just bring down this -5. 6x added to -6x cancel, and now bring down the 11. Alright, and now what we want to do is we want to isolate the x term. We have -5 next to the x term. Let's do the opposite of subtracting 5. Let's add 5 to both sides. Alright, now these cancel and bring down the 2x, so we have the x term isolated by itself on the left side, and add the 11 and 5. And now we're ready to isolate x by dividing both sides by 2. Now let me mention that we can always check our solution by substituting back in. So let's do a check in this case. So we're going to substitute in an 8 instead of x here and here. So we have 8 times 8, that's what we're substituting in, subtract 5, is equal to 6 times 8 plus 11. And we want to, I'm going to put a little question mark here because we want to check whether or not that's true. Alright, so let's do this. Here we have 64 minus 5. And we want to see, is that equal to 6 times 8 is 48 plus 11. 64 subtract 5 is 59. And 48 and 11 is also 59. Both sides are equal, so that means our answer does check. In number 4, we have a linear equation with two x terms. And we want to gather together the x terms. So we'll do this by subtracting 8x from both sides. And here we have 2x. Let's bring down that -5, bring down the equal sign, and bring down the -13. The next step is isolate the x term. So the x term has a -5 next to it. We'll do the opposite. We'll add 5 to both sides. Let's bring down the 2x, and these cancel. Bring down the equal sign. Negative 13 plus 5 is negative 8. And now finally we're going to isolate x. X is being multiplied by 2, so we'll do the opposite. We're going to divide both sides by 2. And we have x is equal to negative 4. In number 13, we have some simplifying to do first on the left-hand side. We're going to open up parentheses, and what we're going to do is we're just going to do the distributive law. We're going to multiply through by 3. Multiply both terms in parentheses by 3. So we have 3 times 4 is 12, so we have 12x plus 3 times 2, that's 6, is equal to 3x minus 7. And now we're ready to gather together the x terms, so we'll do that by subtracting 3x from both sides. Here we have 9x plus 6 is equal to, here we have some canceling, negative 7. Bring down the negative 7. And now isolate the x term. Let's get rid of the plus 6 by doing the opposite of addition. We'll subtract 6 from both sides. Bring down the 9x. Here we have canceling. Bring down the equal sign. And here we have negative 7 plus negative 6 is negative 13. And now we're ready to isolate x by dividing both sides by 9. So we have x is equal to negative 13 over 9. In number 7, again, we want to simplify the left-hand side, so we're going to do the distributive law. We're going to multiply both sides by negative 2. I'm going to circle the negative 2 to make sure that we include that negative sign when we multiply. So first we're doing negative 2 times 4, that's negative 8. And then we're doing negative 2 times negative 7x. Alright, so when you multiply two negatives you get a positive, so that's positive 14x. Is equal to 3x plus 2 on the right-hand side. And now we're gathering together the x terms, so let's subtract 3x from both sides. Alright, let's bring down the negative 8. 14x minus 3x is 11x. Here we have some canceling, and let's bring down the plus 2. And now we want to isolate the x term. So here we have a negative 8. Let's do the opposite, and let's add 8 to both sides. Alright, so here's some canceling. And now we have the x term isolated on the left. 11x is equal to 10. And now isolate x. We're going to divide by 11 so that these cancel. And we get x is equal to 10 over 11, and we'll just leave it like that. In number 7, we have an equation with many variables, and we want to solve for x. So we're going to start by isolating the x term. So let's subtract this 5b from both sides. We'll bring down the ax. Here we have canceling 5b and minus 5b. Bring down the equal sign. Now 2d and minus 5b are not like terms, so we're not going to combine them. We're just going to write on the right hand side 2d subtract 5b. And now we want to isolate x. Well, x is being multiplied by a, so we'll do the opposite. We'll divide by a. Make sure you divide the entire right hand side by a. Alright, these cancel. And finally we have x is equal to 2d minus 5b divided by a. In number 8, again, we want to solve for x, so let's just circle the variable that we're solving for. All right, so we want x by itself. X is being multiplied by 5, and it's being multiplied by r. So let's, in one division, let's divide by 5r. Divide by whatever's multiplying x. So that we get canceling. The 5's cancel, and the r's cancel, and we're left with x isolated on the left-hand side. So we have x is equal to 15s divided by 5r. Notice that we can reduce this a little bit. We can divide top and bottom by 5. So let's write x is equal to 3s divided by r. In number 9, we have a fraction equal to a fraction, and in this situation we can cross multiply. So again, this time we want to, notice we want to solve for r. Alright, so let's start by cross multiplying, and that will get rid of these fractions, and then we'll solve for r. So we're going to multiply 3r times t, so we have 3rt equal, and then we're going to multiply 4 times 2s, and that is 8s. Now we're solving for r. R is being multiplied by 3 and also by t, so let's divide by 3t on both sides. Alright, so the 3's cancel and the t's cancel, and we have r is equal to 8s divided by 3t. In number 10, we want to solve for s, and we'd like to cross multiply like we did before, but we need the following form. In order to cross multiply, we need a fraction on the left equal to a fraction on the right. Well, let's write q as a fraction. So let's write q as q over 1. Any number can be written as itself over 1. So now the left is written as a fraction. And on the right, s is also equal to s over 1, and t is t over 1. So this right-hand side is really 3st in the numerator, divided by 4 times 1 times 1, which is just 4, in the denominator. So now we managed to write both sides as fractions, and we can cross multiply like we did in the previous example. So let's multiply q times 4, and 1 times 3st. Now let's remind ourselves we're solving for s. Alright, so I'm just going to circle that. S is being multiplied by 3 and also by t, so let's divide by both 3 and t on both sides. Alright, so these 3's cancel and so do the t's, and we're left with s equal to 4q divided by 3t.